I'm Olivia Jorgensen, and this is Emmy Calzado, and today we're going to talk about biblical worldview and the Bible storyline. What do you believe a biblical worldview should look like?
I think that in everything you do, you should always follow the law, of course. Like the Bible tells you to follow the law, but when it comes to anything that might oppose God's word, you need to follow God's word first in that type of situation. I think that's how.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely always following God's word instead of the world, because the world's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Alright, so when focusing on the storyline of the Bible, what connectors do you see moving the story along?
I mean, God uses a lot of, the prophecies and the family lineage to move it along, because there's a lot of prophecies about the coming of Christ, which you only see in the New Testament, so it's a lot of that being placed in the Old Testament, and then you see it actually happen in the New Testament, so that connects a lot of it. And, just the covenants that God made with people, you see those being fulfilled in the New Testament and just throughout the Bible. Yeah. How do you personally apply the biblical worldview to your everyday life?
I think that for everyday life, you need to think about think before you do anything, and always think, what would Jesus do?
Mm-hmm.
I feel, because taking that time to pause and think could really make a difference in your testimony.
Mm-hmm.
And also really make you rethink decisions that don't seem bad at first, but can be.
Yeah.
If you don't stop to think about it
Yeah,
first.
it's like in a situation with driving, road rage, instead of getting angry at a person, you just stop and take a breath and, show a Christian character instead of just getting angry and freaking out at the person.
And looking at people, how God will look at them. You love everyone. We are all sinners, and we are not better than anyone in any way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Do you think that learning about how others perceive the world will help strengthen your own biblical worldview?
Yeah, I think it definitely does, because, if you don't know what others are thinking or what they believe, you're not going to be able to help them, because then you don't know what they're basing their own belief off of, and if you don't know that, then you can't help show them what's wrong with it, and, you need to, obviously learn about what you believe, and then study other beliefs, just so you can have the knowledge of what you need to say to certain people depending on what they believe and how they perceive things, because obviously there's so many other religions and they perceive the world in so many different ways, so the only way you can combat what they're doing and try and spread God's word is to know what you're fighting against.
And it helps you to know why you believe what you believe.
Yeah.
Too, because if someone asks you something and you never heard it before, it might mess with you a little bit.
Yeah. When you're doing your own study through the Bible, do you find the storyline easy to recognize?
For the most part, I think that some chapters obviously don't follow the same storyline, but it always ties together. Yeah, it's pretty tied together.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the Old Testament, a lot of its storylines, and then there's just all the lists of generations and families and stuff, that definitely helps see the storyline and just where people connect New Testament to Old Testament, stuff like that. Yeah. So, thank you for listening to our podcast about the Bible storyline and biblical worldview.